Well, it's a very good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening to some of you who are dialing into the Coaching Cafe, either live or on your favorite streaming service. Welcome. My name is Dr. Natalie Ashdown from Open Door Coaching and IECL. And today we are talking about AI in coaching. What should we be focusing on? And for those that know me, I get very excited and I talk too fast when we have a guest speaker, but I don't apologize because I'm very excited today to welcome to the line Lu Ngo, Head of Digital Skills Program with the Australian Institute of Management. Welcome to the line, Lu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Nat.
Well, as always, we acknowledge the traditional owners, the custodians, and the lands on which we all meet today, their continuing connection to the lands and waters of the communities of Australia, and the lands from all around the world where you might be joining us. We have Canada, Malaysia, New York, all around the world, all around Australia. You're joining us live. Tokyo's just joined us. So we repay our respects to them, elders past, present, and emerging, and elders from Indigenous communities from all around the world. Welcome to you all. Our agenda today, we have an action-packed agenda. We have so much to discuss, and I need to get through the introductions so we can just focus on leveraging all the experience that you have, Lou. So we're going to be talking about today about how AI is influencing coaching and leadership conversations, what coaches and leaders should be focusing on when we talk about an AI-enabled workplace. We want to give you some practical ideas in terms of integrating AI into our coaching conversations. So, for those of you that are new to the Coaching Cafe, we say welcome. We're all about creating a shared learning experience, having thought provoking conversations, and ICF CCEs, the continuing coach education units, are available at the end of the session if you are listening to this live. To all our regulars, welcome back, whether you're listening to this live. And we know that the podcast is getting so many downloads. It's so exciting. Thank you for joining us as a regular. We are always really keen that you interact with us via the chat box, by the chat. And for this conversation in particular, perhaps you might like to hit up the chat there and tell us, what are you using AI for in your coaching practice? So feel free to interact in the chat box and tell us that. So, what are you using AI for in your coaching or your coaching practice? And we're also interested in understanding, because this will be a two-part series actually, this series, and we're having a conversation next week as well. So, because we can discuss this over two parts, we're interested in, what are you struggling with most when it comes to integrating AI into your coaching or into your coaching practice? So, what are you using it for? What are you struggling with? It will be good to hear from you. We'll pick up that conversation. So, we know that AI is being used in coaching in a number of different ways, for content writing, for virtual coaching assistance, some sophisticated data analysis, for scenario simulations, and of course for self-coaching and goal attainment. So we have a slide there. If you're listening to the podcast, pick that up on our blog. But it is all about using AI at the moment for content writing, drafts, frameworks, resources, coaching materials, things like that. There is quite a bit of virtual coaching assistant going on. AI has been used in coaching and coaching practices for a long time in sophisticated data analysis. So being able to collect statistics and feedback, etc., and analyze that. More and more, we're seeing AI being used in scenarios. So, anyone that caught our coaching cafes last year, this time last year, you would have actually seen me show you how the different AI chats are working with the ICF, how we're using AI chatbots to investigate our coaching transcripts with permission, of course, and looking at how our transcripts relate to the ICF core competencies. And long-term listeners will know that I actually caught ChatGPT out by saying, don't give me suggestions, coach me. And then it started giving me suggestions. So I'm very interested in how the AI has evolved over the past year as well. We'll be looking more into that. And of course, self-coaching and goal attainment. There's There's apps out there that are doing self-coaching and goal attainment. And the International Coach Federation has put a lot of work and effort into the research around this. So it's definitely helping. And it's definitely coming into the coaching industry more and more. Even the IECL, which we're a part of now, has a new product which is introducing AI assisted coaching as well. So I'm giving you all this as background. We also looked up the 2025 Global Coaching Study, the report that was released last year. And Lou, this is where I'm interested in your opinions, and let's me stop talking and get into hearing from the experts. You are head of digital skills programs for AIM, so I want to stop talking and get your input. Uh, the study said that 47% of coaches are now using digital coaching platforms, but the use is mostly in virtual one-on-one coaching sessions or scheduling and managing. So they're the two kind of uses. In terms of adapting to technology, the report said only 19% of coaches have actually invested in new technology. It is set to increase to 27% over the next couple of years. And one third of, or 37% of coaches indicated, this is the interesting one to me, 37% of coaches indicated that adapting to technology and digital tools is a major concern, which is why you're on the line, Lou. So, can I throw now to a question to you? And I'm thinking, when you see those statistics for our coaching industry, and you think about the industries that you've been exposed to, what's your opinion in terms of how our industry is placed? And I'll stop take the slides down so we can really focus on you as well. So, what are you thinking there, Lou?
Thanks, Nat. I guess, before I answer the question, I should probably set the scene around what I do so that, my answer is in context because I'm by no means an AI expert. I'm not a digital skills expert, but what I am an expert in is training for organizations and, what they need. And so this spans across lots of industries. And we work with all sorts of industries you can think of in our open programs, in our closed cohorts, in our tailored solution. So we really understand what the industries are struggling with. And we do a lot of research in this space to be able to introduce courses as well. So when I look at the statistics of the coaching industry, that was particularly interesting to me because I remember there was a time when, I thought Calendly was so innovative. And I'm sure, people on the line are probably going to agree with that. And then now we have advanced AI tools that takes that to the next level. So I see that the industry is really adopting that digitizing access and streamlining admin and helping with the really basics foundation work. What I see potential for is the fact that you can take this to the next level through augmenting your coaching and your practice. And what do I mean by augmenting? I
Please
think
tell us.
that is probably an interesting one because
Yeah.
when it comes to things like, okay, let's cut down admin time, everyone has started to do that, since AI came out. And like I see a lot of our audience here do use AI for admin, help with certain, smaller tasks
Mm.
that they probably don't have a lot of time for. Whereas augmenting is actually when you break it down into your, in your workflow. I'm not going to assume that I know everything that a coach does, but having been coached myself, I could imagine you need to prepare. You need to, onboard your clients. You need to then analyze the client's needs and where they're at, measure progress, and also have some analytics to be able to generate the learning that they might go through. So all of that can actually be augmented by AI. It's not an individual, task in the workflow per se, but when you think about that in the big picture, um, a lot of that can change when you know what AI can do. But I also think it's a challenge because if you don't really know what AI can do, it's really hard to then augment your practice and change all of the old processes in the way that you've approached coaching. And that's just a thought starter. This is not even, the answer to everything, right?
Yeah, you are right because as soon as you say that, augment, I'm like, okay, so how do I augment my coaching practice? And then it is a case of you don't know what you don't know. So
Yeah.
that's where we'll talk, at the end of our session about how AIM is actually filling that gap. And I must apologize to you, Lou, too. In my haste to get into our conversation because I was so excited, I forgot to introduce you properly. So
So
thank you
good.
for going ahead and introducing yourself there. Absolutely. Yeah, and people are saying that here on the chat that they're creating a standard for powerful questions. So they're using AI to think about thought-provoking questions for onboarding documents, emails, admin, scripts and scenarios for targeted coaching and demos. So to even develop coaching practices. So there is in our community just here online quite a lot going on,
Yeah.
which is what you're saying. That's the augmented idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it's to take it to the next level. I see that there's a lot of potential in what everyone has started to do, and there's a lot more that you can do. For example, when you think about a journey of a client,
Mm,
AI can actually be embedded throughout the process, right? And it doesn't just help the client; it helps yourself. But it also it starts with this one big question: how are you storing all this data? Right? Because I would imagine coaches run their own businesses, um, or some of them might be sole traders, they work by themselves. So the way that you store your data would really then help you to either think about how you can embed AI in that, or you might have to rebuild
mm,
to actually enable that to happen. Because a lot of the work that used to happen years ago would be manual. Right. I've gone through coaching myself, so I sort of see that, oh, it's quite manual. Like every time, like before you have a coaching session, you get an email, or you do some quiz, or like even in the coaching, you talk to your coach. They will document the insights, and then next time, how do you measure that? Right? I think that's kind of the interesting bit, and also keeping the conversation going outside of the coaching session, right? Which is why now there are a lot of technologies that can help you with the virtual coaching and like to help your clients when you're not around. But obviously, that there are levels of that. There are tools that help on the surface level, where it's just okay, temporary solution. There are tools where you can actually embed your own set of coaching questions or scenarios or things that you really want to highlight to your own client. And also, how do you measure progress, right? I would imagine there are certain ways you need to capture the data. How do you go about doing that? And that would then enable you to augment your coaching because you don't have to worry about, oh, okay, my client's been with me for 3 months, 6 months. I need to create this checkpoint manually. Actually, if I have this in my coaching practice and it's in my infrastructure of, whatever I'm using as a coach, I can put that hat on and start to embed AI throughout. But it depends on the workflow of how each of you are going about your coaching or each organization. Even like IECL and Open Door, for example, right? Like I'm sure you've started to have conversations about it.
yeah, absolutely. Lou, as you're speaking, I feel like I just need to stop and take notes. And I also, I also feel like we're recording this conversation, so we're going to be able to listen back to it. There's so much you've added to our conversation already. A couple of things that are coming up for me. One is the storage of the data. So we'll have to talk about that next week when it comes to ethics.
Yeah.
As well, which we will. But the other thing is that really stood out, and I think that's where your expertise comes into it because you are highly attuned to the journey that we're taking people on. And you said that we could consider the journey that we're taking our clients on and where AI is embedded. And you mentioned the follow-up, and that is one thing that coaches and we experience even in workshops. How do we get that embedding of our workshops or our coaching workshops and what more can we do there? So it's quite thought-provoking what you've said there to really take that perspective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, there's no shortage of tools nowadays. So,
Mm,
the question that I think we really need to ask is what's the goal? Because each coach would have their own practice and there are certain things in your workflow that you might want to improve. There are certain outcomes for your own clients that you want to get, but not all tools have the same way of delivering that outcome, and
mm,
not all tools work with you, right? And I give this really silly and funny example. I have a PT, technically a coach, yes. And so, when I think about that, they the way that they work, it's very manual, obviously very different from your work, but it just in the sense of a journey, I can imagine. I'll give you an example so it's a bit clearer. The onboarding, very manual. My progress, I don't know how that is measured. And then, the even the exercises in between. So
Mm,
it's similar to coaching in the sense that you don't just have the sessions and go home, right? You have the sessions, then you have exercises in between.
mm,
But
mm,
then do you check and how do you check that they have actually done that? How do you generate these tailored exercises for them in between so that
mm,
it actually helps with your client's journey to achieve that goal? Because that is the success measurement of a coach, I would say, right? Your client progresses through all the stages, do all the things they need to do, and attain the goals that they want to achieve. So when I think about that, I have oftentimes play the other role of reminding my coach, can you generate exercises for me? Sometimes I'm lazy, I don't do that. But on certain weeks, I'm like, oh, I don't have exercises I do outside of my PT session. So, outside of the coaching sessions that your clients have, what else are you doing?
mm.
And what else is the client doing? How do you generate that in a way that is really efficient and effective for both yourself and the client? Because I would imagine in the conversation, some people in the chat have actually shared that, they develop scripts or, action steps and things to follow up after each session. But oftentimes, you probably spend a lot of time yourself developing this. The way that AI can help you and augment your coaching is that it's sort of like a bank of data and information, depending on your coaching practice, your client's information, to then tailor and generate all of that weekly or monthly or quarterly, whatever it might be for your scenario. But I think it depends on, and I know we'll talk about data next week, but it depends on the data you capture, and it depends on, it's sort of like the large language model that, oftentimes pe when people hear about AI, they hear about it. What kind of large language model are you using that for? So there's just a lot to consider. And again, I'm no expert to tell you what exactly to use, and I won't even go there. I think it's more around this is an opportunity to learn about what you can actually do. And
Mm.
there's a lot you can do, right? If I can imagine how a PT practice can be improved, then coaching would be similar in that sense because there's a client journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, that client journey extends to follow-ups and it extends to measurements. And so, what else can we do around that? And that's getting quite a few thumbs up in the chats there too. Thank you. So Lou, there's two ways that we can consider this conversation. One is ourselves in coaching practice, and how we can improve our coaching practice. And I just want to point out to those people on the line, if you're a manager in the workplace and you're coaching people, that conversation is still relevant. We're talking about our coaching practice and how we can improve the way that we deliver services to clients. So that's one lens that we can take it from. The other lens I'm thinking about is how is AI influencing coaching and leadership conversations? Because this is what I'm finding more in the executive coaching that I'm doing. The it's almost like we need to be more in tune with what's happening with our clients. So it's what's
Yeah.
happening within the conversation. So there's one lens. Does that make sense? One lens is the practice, what we're doing to
Yeah,
augment, as you say.
absolutely.
But the other is what do we need to be aware of in terms of the conversations we're having as well. What are
Yeah.
you thinking about that, Lou?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because we work with people that you might coach, right? We work with
Mm,
your potential or your existing clients in training. And oftentimes, so obviously, we do work with individual contributors up to mid managers, and then we also work with senior managers up to execs. And oftentimes when it comes to mid managers the struggle would be for example in this age when they're introducing AI how do they manage that with their team
mm,
oftentimes the question would go back to what is the organization's AI strategy, is it causing fears, and if managers are going about coaching their teams, this often comes up, right? Oh, will I have a job tomorrow?
mm,
And like what is AI going to do? Like how is it going to impact my career? This I have actually found because I do coach young people and mentor them. And so I do find that, obviously not as the extent that you and professional coaches do, but in the sense that I try to help. And when I try to help, I try to understand and see from what they cannot see. Have you considered
Mm,
what AI can do to enhance your work? Have you consider what the career opportunities could be if you really understand the potential of AI? So that's, for the young professionals that just entered the workplace. But then for, senior leaders, execs, it's a different conversation. If you're coaching them, they might oftentimes probably what kept it up at night is that, how do I increase revenue? How do I make sure my organization stays competitive in this day and age, in this market that's really tough, that, has AI everywhere and I don't know what to do with it.
mm,
So, if we look at it from that lens, then obviously coaches are not AI specialists. I'll just say that. But what coaches can really help with is to bring them understandings of what they can do through asking them really good questions.
mm,
And the way that coaches can ask good questions is through learning about what's possible and what they need to consider, right? Because especially in executive coaching and when you coach senior leaders, they make decisions that impact a lot of people. They make decisions that impact lots of workflows.
mm,
So
mm,
what are the consideration, right? A very your simple example could be, you've got a client who is a senior manager or an exec and comes to you and say, I'm not sure about what to do about my workforce planning. I'm really struggling because of AI. And we do have an AI strategy, but I'm not sure what that means for my workforce planning. And they might need support to go through that process. And so if the coaches like yourselves don't have the foundational or the same level of understanding of what is needed, then it's really hard, right? So I think we all need to bring ourselves up to speed to have these conversations,
mm,
because we're not the one making the decisions, we're not the one driving the decision, but we are the ones, giving them the insights, asking them really good questions that they can come to the conclusion themselves, right? So it's, oftentimes questions that can be really simple. What is your organization's AI strategy? Do you have one?
mm,
Right? Does the
mm,
organization have one? Has it been communicated to the wider organization? To execs in people in human resources, they might sort of start thinking, what level of information do I communicate? Where are we going with our, workforce planning to make sure I don't cause panic, or, to make sure that I can build capability in my people through either training, coaching, or, further education. So, there are lots of things to consider. Lots of new roles are being created. And all these senior leaders who are working with coaches might go to the coaches for that, right? They might want some perspective, or they might want things to help them to be able to consider, okay, what am I going to go back to work tomorrow and start doing and start looking at?
mm. There's so much in what you've said, Lou. As I said, I'm going to listen back to this recording because you're absolutely right. And I'm thinking about the conversations that I have been having. And we started out by saying that we're not the experts here, but what we are really good at is asking those thought-provoking questions,
Yeah,
the powerful questions that drive the awareness. And drive the critical thinking that's needed and the judgment when it comes to decision making.
yeah,
And what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that the more we're informed about what's happening, we don't have to be an expert. We're not making suggestions or anything because that's not coaching. But the more that we're informed, then that can actually potentially drive the power of our questions as well. So
yeah,
I'm not exactly sure how that shows up because I'm obviously being led by the coachee. But,
yeah,
but I'm thinking about that. And the other thing that, as soon as you say fears, I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
I actually have that fear. I feel like I might be missing out or I'm not keeping up. Or, that's why I bring you on the line, Luke, because you can help me with all that. So
yeah,
I think I love it how we're being really real here, that there's, there is a lot of fear going on in our workplaces,
yeah.
and I'm feeling that actually with the clients that we're coaching.
Hmm. Yeah, I would imagine, especially given the economic climate and what's happening in the world and all sorts of things that, one conversation can not cover. But yeah, I think, there's just so much that goes into this. And I suppose I remember our conversation the other day, Nat, when we were discussing this topic, and there's just so much that can be done. And we brought it back to what do we need to know? Like you said earlier as well, right? Like what exactly do we need to know to be able to bring out and create those really good questions? And I know some people in our audience actually use the help of AI to formulate those questions, right? But remember, AI is trained by large language models. They have cutoff dates, which means they're not always up to date. And they can process information extremely fast, but that doesn't mean it comes without things like AI slop. So if you just take whatever AI gives you and bring it to, whether your collaboration, your client, your workplace, chances are there's a very strong lack of judgment in there. So, you can use AI as a thought partner, right? And for example, things like fear, okay, how can I ask questions to help with this? But ultimately, it is about the coaches. Ultimately, you are the only one that can see what is actually happening with the human. So while AI can help with things like, recommending offline exercises, the coaching happens with the people, right? So that it's never going to change. Or things like like short coaching off online outside of the in-person sessions that can support the journey, but it will never replace what the work that you do. And I think it's also a very important point that in this age of AI, and there's that when there are a lot of issues with AI slop or information that's just you just need to fact check, right? What I think is really important for the coaches is actually, first of all, educate themselves about what AI can and cannot do, to consider what can and cannot augment your practice, and second of all, always have something, pick an anchor where you never use AI for,
Mm-hmm.
right? AI can really help. I create courses with my team to teach people about it. Um, do I love it? I have a love-hate relationship with it sometimes, right? Because of because of the fact that I'm still very much human, and I just love how much and humans can do, and the human potential we can unlock through coaching is so important. And so there are certain tasks that I would recommend if you can pick at least one or maybe three, depending on your workflow, depending on how much you have, and never use AI for those tasks.
Yeah.
So you always have that human judgment in the loop. So you never fall into a situation where, you look at an AI output and then you're kind of like, oh, how did I come to that? But that kind of looks good. Okay, we can go with that, right? So it'll never come to that situation because you already have that human judgment and that continuous loop of learning.
I love that, Lou. You've given us so many great things to think about and challenging us to be aware, like increase our awareness. And that last practical tip you've given, I love that as well. You mentioned that to me a couple of days ago, and I've been really thinking about it. Where are we not going to use AI? Where do we make a commitment that we're not going to use AI for whatever purpose? And then, as you say, coming back to what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve with it's the classic question. It's the first question we ask, isn't it? In terms of what are we trying to achieve with ourselves, with our own awareness, with our clients, in our coaching practice, in coaching managers to coach others. So I can't believe our conversation has we are right on time. So I want to spend just 30 seconds telling everyone that because Open Door now is part of a larger group, we have access to the AIM short courses, the AI Essentials for Business, and the Responsible AI Leadership programs as well. These are courses that you have designed, Lou. So I want to tell people that they can use the QR code there to scan And I am enrolling in these programs. I can't wait to do them. And for those that are interested, I am well informed that we can actually offer a 20% discount on the courses until the 26th of April. So if you email support@opendoorcoaching.com.au and you mention this coaching cafe, then we can give you that 20% discount. So there's a little practical thing. We can get ourselves educated and learn more through those courses as well. Lou, we are going to come back next week and talk more about ethics and just continue our conversation. I just want to thank you so much for opening up our conversation and opening up our thinking. And I can't wait to catch up at our next session.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nat. And hopefully these training courses will really help our audience to gain that understanding to formulate really great coaching questions.
I'm sure they will. Thank you so much. We'll say, as always, goodbye for now, everybody, and enjoy your coaching.